I kept score for several years at work and it held me back. Then I watched it destroy some of our most successful people, not because they quit producing, but because they couldn't stop comparing themselves to others. Hi, I'm Matt Campbell, a family medicine physician of 25 years who became obsessed with evolutionary psychology and neuroscience to help successful people understand why they still feel stuck. So here's a little bit more backstory with this. Think of it as, being an employee at a work, maybe an entrepreneur or partner, and you're doing a great job, you're exceeding everybody's expectations, you're outproducing everyone. And instead of taking this as confirmation of your capabilities and your potential, you take it as an opportunity to start comparing yourself, what you're doing versus others. And you start to wonder why, especially if you're not getting any immediate rewards or reinforcement of these positive habits, why you're working so hard when nobody else is willing to. So you start to, scale back a little bit, and you think, why am I working so hard when nobody else is willing to do this? And often you don't even realize you're doing it, and it couches itself or hides behind the words like fairness. And if you find yourself saying this isn't fair or anything along those lines, there should be a big red flag. And here's the sneaky part of why this is such a problematic thing. Because when you do this, basically you're letting what other people are willing or capable of doing, could be one or the other, set your ceiling. And that obviously, hopefully for your sake, your ceiling is much higher than these other people's ceilings are. And if you're feeling these feelings, often it's a sign that you're exceeding what others are capable of or what they're willing to do. And so those are the people that tend to feel this the most, are people that are high producers. At least they're the ones that most acutely feel the pain, just because the gap between where they're at and where others tend to be, it can be significant. And the problem with this is that you're holding yourself back. So if you're capable of great things, you're basically letting others set your ceiling. You can think of it this way. Say you're running a running race and you're far out ahead of everybody. And instead of just running your own race at your own pace, the best you possibly can do, you keep looking back to see where everybody else is at. And then you realize you're far ahead of everybody. So every time you turn around to take a look back, you slow down a little bit. And then after a while, you start to ask yourself, why am I running so fast? No one else is doing this. Why should I do this? So you slow down more and more, and you start to match everybody else's pace. You basically finish with the pack, and you're average. And that's the problem with this. You let what other people are willing to do or capable of doing set your ceiling. And so I guess the key takeaway with this is, a lot of people are guilty of this, and you may or may not realize that you're doing it, or you may or may not realize what the consequences of this are. And so it can be holding you back significantly. So the first step is awareness, realizing that you're doing it. Often it can be seen, you feel like a sense of frustration or irritation. You start using some of those keywords that I mentioned, like fair or fairness. And then you should ask yourself a simple question. Am I willing to let what other people are capable or willing to do set my ceiling, or would I rather instead explore how high my ceiling really is on my own? And not only is this something that's in an abstract sense good just to be the best version of yourself, which I argue is the best way to have a satisfying, fulfilling life, but you're also holding yourself back. Rewards sometimes are delayed. So if you work very hard, you may not necessarily get recognition. If you're employed or if you're an entrepreneur, it may not manifest itself in some sort of positive outcome right away. But you have to realize that you have to keep at it and keep doing your best, and then good things will ultimately come your way as time goes on. The other thing to think about, if you are an entrepreneur, is that it takes time for these things to show up with good market outcomes. So again, if you catch yourself in this trap, say, do I want to compare myself to others, or do I want to run my own race? If this show changed the way you see things, gave you some insights, hit subscribe as I post things like this on a weekly basis.